what type of leadership does this lead to? Well, I'll start by emphasising that I think it needs to be responsive and flexible leadership. You know, we're all leaders in this room, and like me, I'm sure that you feel pretty good about some aspects of your leadership and not so good about many other aspects. Well, I think based on what I've just said, it's not up to us to work out what we're good and bad at and only deploy the good leadership stuff. The reality is that we're required to respond to what is required at any tick of the clock. I think that we need to be very flexible and indeed to have some really good antenna out there saying what is required of me as a leader at this particular time, because that will change from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. I think good leaders bring out good decision making by their teams. We have an enormous number of small business, medium business in this nation, which drives so much the goods and services required. But when one gets to big business, one really sees the CEO as being a leader of many leaders. My own experience is that the good ones are those that when a big decision is made by the corporation, and as a 30-year investment banker, I've been privileged to see many management discussions, contemplating a major merger or takeover, and I've seen some good discussions and some not so good ones. But the good ones are simply where the CEO says, right, management team, I need all your insights. I'm here to listen. I really want to understand what we're going to do now. And then adeptly turns that conversation into something that the group accepts. There's never unanimity on every issue. There's always differences of opinion and what have you. But the skill is to get everything relevant on the table and then to mould it into a decision that everyone actually finds easier rather than harder to own. On the other hand, I've been around a while. I grew up during the 80s as a young lawyer and saw all those entrepreneurial rogues, as we now call them. They saw that similar, I guess, environment quite differently. For them, it was a challenge just to ram home, with a bit of deal fever infecting them, the transaction that they wanted to execute. Not good leadership. The role of a leader is to accurately highlight and praise the members in the team that have been responsible for that success. And I've got to say that it's pretty confronting for CEOs, this next bit, but CEOs are rarely, frankly, in a position to think that they have been successful themselves. They don't have time. The real work is done in other parts of the organisation. They are time and time again the mouthpiece, the scapegoat, call it what you like, but in truth, whenever a CEO says, this is actually what I did and it wasn't too bad, see through that, because chances are they're actually talking about the efforts of others.
In terms of your own personal journey, who would have been the influential, if not inspirational, people in your life that you saw potentially as role models, or who you think influenced you?
That's a good question, Kerry, and if I'd been asked it, as I was once or twice 20 years ago, I was tempted then to, and actually did think, gosh, who are the most important people in the country that are known that I might have met once or twice, and I'll put their names forward. The truthful answer to your question is probably a whole bunch of people you have never met. They're close friends. They're people that have done it tough. People that have led small non-for-profits, not knowing whether the wages are in the till for next week. I don't want to make this overly personal, but I have an older sister with an intellectual disability. I've cared for her for 30 or 40 years. She's trapped within a body that doesn't work like I would suggest everyone in the room. A more positive person you will not find. And all I can say is that when I see her each week, that inspiration, if you like, rubs off on me. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't the rich and the famous and those written up in the dailies every day who aren't inspirational either, but they don't have a monopoly on the answer to Kerry's question. I think that we all have incredibly special people literally very close to us who guide us each day. There are very few saints in our society. I'm certainly not one of them. And whenever I'm...
Care to tell us about some of your sins? Go on.
Not publicly, but the reality is that I think there ought to be an element of selfishness when we think about giving back. And by that I simply mean, the community sector is so broad, covers such a vast array of pursuits. Take the time to work out what works for each of us.